As we, ca- as we cautiously stepped through the creaking front doors of the abandoned haunted mansion, a chilling gust of wind swept through the grand foyer, sending a shiver down my spine. The air was thick with an eerie silence, broken only by the distant sound of dripping water and the occasional whispering of the wind. Armed with flashlights and a sense of adventure, our small group of explorers made our way further into the decaying mansion. The once opulent walls were now covered in layers of dust and cobwebs, and the ornate chandeliers hung precariously from the ceiling, casting eerie shadows on the faded wallpaper. As we ventured deeper into the mansion, the atmosphere grew increasingly unsettling. The floorboards creaked beneath our feet, as if protesting our intrusion into this long-forgotten place. The walls seemed to hold the secrets of past inhabitants, whispering tales of tragedy and despair. Each room we entered revealed a different aspect of the mansion's haunting history. In the dining hall, an overturned table and shattered china hinted at a violent event that had taken place in this very room. In the ballroom, the faint sound of ghostly music echoed, as if remnants of a long-gone celebration still lingered in the air. We made our way up the grand staircase, its once majestic banister now worn and splintered. The upper floors held even more mysteries, with each room bearing the marks of time and neglect. In a forgotten study, we discovered a collection of old photographs, their faded faces staring back at us, frozen in time. The further we delved into the mansion, the more we could feel a presence lingering, watching our every move. Whispers seemed to follow us, growing louder and more insistent with each passing moment. Shadows danced along the walls, playing tricks on our senses and heightening our unease. As the night wore on, we found ourselves in a hidden chamber, concealed behind a secret passage. The room was filled with an otherworldly energy, and a cold draft sent a shiver down my spine. It was here that we encountered something truly unsettling, a collection of old journals, filled with accounts of paranormal activity and unexplained phenomena. With each page we turned, the stories became more chilling, describing encounters with ghostly apparitions, inexplicable voices, and objects moving on their own. It was as if the mansion itself was alive, holding on to its haunted past and refusing to let go. As we finally made our way back to the front doors, our hearts pounding with a mixture of fear and excitement, we couldn't help but wonder about the mysteries that still remained within the abandoned haunted mansion. It was a journey that had opened our eyes to the supernatural, leaving us with a newfound respect for the spirits that may still roam these hallowed halls. In the days that followed our eerie discovery, our unease only grew stronger. The presence of those old journals lingered in our minds, and we couldn't shake the feeling that we had stumbled upon something much larger than ourselves. We became consumed by the stories, spending countless hours analyzing every detail, searching for any hint of truth among the pages. As we delved deeper into the accounts, we began to notice patterns and connections. The descriptions of ghostly apparitions matched the chilling encounters we had experienced ourselves. The voices that were said to echo through the halls, we had heard them too, whispering in the shadows. It was as if the spirits of the mansion were reaching out to us, wanting their stories to be heard. We couldn't resist the pull any longer. Despite our initial unease, we felt drawn back to the abandoned haunted mansion. Armed with cameras, voice recorders, and a newfound courage, we embarked on a mission to uncover the truth behind the paranormal activities that plagued this place. The moment we stepped foot inside, the atmosphere weighed heavily upon us. The air was thick with anticipation, and a sense of foreboding washed over us. Every creak of the floorboards, every flicker of a candle flame, sent our hearts racing. We were no longer mere spectators. We were active participants in a supernatural exploration. As we ventured further into the mansion, the spirits seemed to grow bolder. Shadows danced along the walls, and the temperature dropped to an icy chill. We captured unexplained orbs of light on our cameras, and disembodied voices whispered faintly in our ears. It was both thrilling and terrifying, a constant battle between curiosity and fear. But amidst the fear, we discovered something profound. The spirits we encountered were not malevolent entities seeking to harm us. They were lost souls, trapped within the confines of the mansion, desperately yearning for release. They longed to share their stories, their unfulfilled desires, and their unfinished business. With each encounter, we offered our empathy and understanding. We listened to their whispers, acknowledged their presence, and honored their existence. It was a cathartic experience, both for us and for the spirits themselves. We became conduits for their voices, bridging the gap between the living and the dead. When we finally left the haunted mansion for the last time, we carried with us a newfound respect for the supernatural. We had witnessed firsthand the power of the unknown and the resilience of the human spirit. Our unease had transformed into a deep appreciation for the mysteries that lie beyond our understanding. The abandoned haunted mansion still stands, its secrets hidden within its decaying walls. And while we may never fully comprehend the extent of its haunted past, we will forever cherish the lessons it taught us. We continue to explore the unexplained, seeking answers to questions that may never be fully answered. For in the realm of the supernatural, there will always be more to discover, more to learn, and more to embrace. As we ventured into new haunted locations, our experiences in the mansion served as a guide. We approached each encounter with an open mind and a willingness to connect with the spirits that resided there. We became skilled at deciphering subtle signs and signals, allowing us to communicate with entities from beyond. The spirits we encountered varied in nature. Some were lost and confused, others harbored unfinished business, while a few seemed content to simply linger in their ethereal existence. But regardless of their individual circumstances, we treated each spirit with the same respect and compassion we had learned from the haunted mansion. Our endeavors attracted the attention of others who shared our fascination with the supernatural. We formed a close-knit community, exchanging stories, theories, and techniques for connecting with the other side. Together, we delved deeper into the mysteries of the paranormal, unearthing new insights and expanding our understanding. Our experiences also drew the attention of skeptics and critics who dismissed our encounters as mere figments of imagination. But we remained undeterred, knowing that our interactions with the spirits were real and profound. We understood that the supernatural could not always be neatly explained or quantified, but that did not diminish its significance. In our quest for knowledge, we encountered dark and malevolent forces that tested our resolve. We faced entities that sought to deceive and manipulate, threatening to consume our very souls. But armed with the lessons learned from the haunted mansion, we stood strong against these malevolent spirits, protecting ourselves and those who sought our guidance. As time went on, we realized that our purpose extended beyond personal curiosity. We became advocates for the spirits, using our newfound understanding to help them find peace and closure. We assisted in resolving long-standing conflicts, bringing solace to both the living and the dead. In the process, we discovered that the line between the physical and spiritual realms is not as rigid as it may seem. We encountered individuals who possessed unique abilities to communicate with the spirits, acting as bridges between both worlds. These gifted individuals joined our ranks, further strengthening our collective mission. Our work continues to this day, as we explore haunted locations, investigate paranormal phenomena, and offer guidance to those seeking answers. We understand that the supernatural will always remain a mystery, but we embrace the unknown with a sense of wonder and reverence. And as we navigate the realms of the supernatural, we carry the lessons learned from the haunted mansion with us. We listen attentively to the whispers of the spirits, acknowledging their presence and honoring their existence. Through our actions, we strive to bridge the gap between the living and the dead, offering a glimpse into the enigmatic world that lies beyond our understanding. In our continued exploration of the supernatural, we have encountered countless entities and phenomena that defy explanation. From poltergeists causing objects to move on their own, to apparitions appearing in the corner of our vision, each experience has deepened our understanding of the complex relationship between the physical and spiritual realms. Our team of gifted individuals, with their unique abilities to communicate with spirits, has proven to be invaluable in our investigations. They serve as conduits, allowing us to establish a connection with the other side and gain insights into the mysteries that surround us. Through their guidance, we have uncovered hidden truths, offered closure to restless spirits, and provided solace to those affected by the supernatural. As we delve into haunted locations, as I stepped into the old Victorian house, a shiver ran down my spine. The air felt heavy and tinged with a sense of foreboding. It was the beginning of my haunting journey, where I would delve into the world of ghostly encounters and try to uncover the mysteries that lay within. The stories I had heard about this house were enough to send chills down anyone's spine. It was said to be haunted by the spirits of its previous inhabitants, who had met tragic fates within its walls. Some claimed to have seen apparitions floating through the rooms, while others spoke of strange noises and objects moving on their own. Armed with a camera, a voice recorder, and a brave heart, I embarked on my quest to document any paranormal activity that might occur. As I set up my equipment, I couldn't help but feel a sense of unease. The silence was deafening, and I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. As the night fell, the house seemed to come alive with eerie whispers and creaking floorboards. I cautiously made my way from room to room, capturing every corner with my camera. Every now and then, I would hear a faint giggle or catch a glimpse of a shadowy figure out of the corner of my eye, but as soon as I turned to look, it would vanish into thin air. The temperature dropped suddenly, and I could see my breath in the air. It was as if a cold presence had enveloped the room. As I reached out to touch a doorknob, a jolt of electricity shot through my fingers, causing me to recoil in shock. The spirits were trying to communicate, but their intentions remained a mystery. I continued to explore the house, my heart pounding with each step. The flickering lights cast eerie shadows on the walls, and I could hear distant whispers growing louder. An overwhelming sense of sadness washed over me, as if the house itself held the weight of its tragic history. Suddenly, a door slammed shut, causing me to jump in fright. I rushed towards the sound, only to find the room empty, with no signs of any physical presence. It was then that I realized these spirits were not here to harm me but to share their stories, seeking solace and acknowledgement. With renewed determination, I began to ask questions aloud, hoping the spirits would respond. To my surprise, faint whispers echoed through the house, answering my queries. Through the voices captured on my recorder, I pieced together the tales of lost love, betrayal, and untimely deaths that had plagued this house for centuries. As the night wore on, I felt a sense of connection with these spirits. They were no longer faceless entities, but individuals with their own stories to tell. It became clear that my role was not just to document their existence, but to offer them closure and help them find peace. With this newfound purpose, I embarked on a journey of research and investigation, uncovering the truth behind the tragic events that had unfolded within the house. It was a daunting task, but one that I approached with empathy and understanding. Months passed, and as I delved deeper into the history of the house, I started to notice a change. The whispers grew softer, the apparitions became less frequent, and a sense of calm settled over the once haunted halls. It seemed that by acknowledging their presence and sharing their stories, I had helped these spirits find the peace they had longed for. My haunting journey had come to an end, but the lessons I learned and the connections I made would stay with me forever. The spirits had taught me that sometimes, the most profound encounters are the ones that challenge our beliefs and offer us a glimpse into the unexplained. As I left the old Victorian house for the last time, I couldn't help but feel a sense of gratitude. I had been a witness to the supernatural, and in return, it had changed me in ways I could never have imagined. My haunting journey had not only unraveled the mysteries of the house, but had also unraveled something within myself, leaving me forever connected to the world of the unexplained. As I walked away from the house, my mind was filled with a mix of emotions. Relief washed over me, knowing that the spirits had found their peace, but a tinge of sadness lingered, knowing that my time with them had come to an end. I couldn't help but wonder if there were other haunted places in need of assistance, other lost souls yearning to be heard. With newfound knowledge and a deep sense of empathy, I embarked on a new journey, to explore and understand the supernatural world that existed alongside our own. I delved into books, researched countless accounts of hauntings, and sought out others who shared a similar fascination. In my quest, I discovered a community of paranormal investigators and enthusiasts. Together, we exchanged stories, theories, and methods of connecting with the other side. I attended seminars and participated in investigations, eager to learn from those who had dedicated their lives to understanding the unexplained. But amidst all the knowledge and excitement, I never forgot the lessons the spirits had taught me. They had shown me the power of listening, of acknowledging and honoring the experiences of others, even if they defied logic or scientific explanation. They had taught me that compassion and understanding could bridge the gap between the living and the departed. As I continued my journey, I encountered countless stories of haunted houses, restless spirits, and unexplained phenomena. Each encounter deepened my understanding and appreciation for the supernatural, but it also reinforced the importance of compassion and empathy in the face of the unknown. Over time, I became known for my ability to connect with spirits and help them find peace. People from all walks of life sought my assistance, hoping for closure, resolution, or simply a better understanding of the unexplained. I approached each case with an open mind and a heart filled with compassion, knowing that every spirit had a story to tell. Through my work, I witnessed the transformative power of sharing these stories. Families found solace in understanding the history of their haunted homes, and individuals discovered a sense of closure when their loved ones made contact from beyond the veil. The supernatural became a bridge, connecting the living and the departed, and I felt privileged to be a part of that connection. As time went on, I realized that my haunting journey had not only changed me but also those who sought my help. The stories I shared, the connections I made, and the lessons I learned had a ripple effect, touching the lives of many. The unexplained became less frightening and more intriguing, an invitation to explore the depths of our existence. And so, I continued to explore, to listen, and to connect. The world of the unexplained became my life's work, and I embraced it wholeheartedly. With each encounter, I grew more convinced that there was still so much we didn't understand, and that the supernatural held the key to unraveling the mysteries of our existence. As I reflect upon my haunting journey, I am filled with gratitude for the spirits who shared their stories with me and the lessons they taught me. They opened my eyes to a world beyond the tangible, a world where our beliefs and perceptions are challenged. And in that world, I found a sense of purpose and a connection to something greater than myself. Though my journey may never truly end, I carry the memories of that old Victorian house and the spirits within it with me always. They have become a part of who I am, a reminder that there is so much more to discover and understand. And as I navigate the uncharted territories of the supernatural, I do so with an open heart, ready to embrace the unknown and to continue unraveling the mysteries of the world beyond our own. I have dedicated my life to exploring the supernatural, to uncovering the hidden truths that lie beyond our comprehension. Through countless investigations, I have encountered spirits from different eras, each with their unique stories and lessons to share. It is through these interactions that I have come to understand the fragility of our human existence and the vastness of the spiritual realm. One particular encounter stands out in my mind, forever etched into my memory. It was a moonlit night when I found myself standing before an abandoned asylum, its crumbling walls whispering secrets of the past. As I stepped through the decaying entrance, I could feel the weight of the spirits that lingered within. The air was heavy with sorrow and despair, as if the pain of past patients still clung to the walls. I cautiously made my way through the dimly lit corridors, my senses heightened, and my heart filled with both trepidation and anticipation. In each room, I could sense the residual energy, the echoes of long-forgotten lives. As I delved deeper into the asylum's history, I discovered the stories of those who had suffered within its walls, tales of anguish and mistreatment, of lives lost and dreams shattered. The spirits guided me through their memories, offering glimpses into their tragic pasts. In the darkness, I found solace in the presence of these lost souls. They were not just ethereal beings but individuals who had once walked this earth, with their own hopes, dreams, and fears. Through their stories, I learned the importance of empathy and compassion, even towards those who had long departed from this realm. With each encounter, my understanding of the supernatural grew, and so did my respect for the mysteries that it held. I realized that the supernatural was not something to fear, but rather an invitation to expand our minds and challenge our beliefs. It was a realm where the boundaries of our reality were blurred, where the impossible became possible.
And we get sleepy. I'm your host, Thomas. Thanks for listening. Get nice and comfy wherever you are, because tonight's story is a long one. The Aeneid is an extraordinary epic poem, the Roman equivalent to the Iliad and Odyssey. It's a story that will take us from the ruins of Troy to the foundation of the Roman Empire. There will be adventure, love, divine interventions, wars, prophecies, and even a journey to the underworld. You'll also learn about Virgil, the author of the Aeneid, as well as the story's cultural and political significance. I'll be reading it to you, and it was written by our friend the French Whisperer, who has his own YouTube channel with lots of amazing sleepy content just like this. Now, my friends, make sure you're nicely settled in. If you've listened to the show for a fair while, you've probably heard me mention my own struggles with sleep that I've dealt with for most of my life. As tough as it can be to concede to those challenges myself, I do feel that I've gradually learned to deal with it better and better as time has gone on. And especially quite recently, my sleep has improved quite significantly, which I'm really grateful for. Of course, I can lean into my experiences, and in doing so, hopefully help all of you to overcome any sleep troubles of your own. One thing that is for sure is that if you're lying awake at night with a head full of noise and a sense of frustration, I've been there many, many times, and I know that, quite frankly, it's awful. So whatever brought you to this show, be it to find an antidote to your sleep struggles, or simply for a source of comfort, just know that you are one of many thousands of listeners. Though I'd love it if we could all sleep soundly every night, I do think it's also reassuring to know that we are not alone when we're having a tough time of it. So, with that being said, let's collectively enjoy a few soothing, deep breaths. Draw in a calming, full breath. Hold at the top and gently release, letting go of worry or tension. Breathe in again. Hold and let it go. One more time together. Breathe in calmly. Hold and exhale any worries or tension. As you begin to drift into a deeper state of relaxation, allow yourself to be reassured that you are one of many that will be listening along tonight. And now, it's time that we turn to our story. So let's go back thousands of years to a city called Troy. This is where our story begins. It all began in Troy, at an important moment during the Trojan War. The Trojans thought that they had won their decade-long war against the Greeks. But in reality, they were in danger of losing everything. You may know the Trojan War as it was told in the Iliad and the Odyssey. All the kings and cities from Greece gathered to attack the powerful city of Troy on the other side of the Aegean Sea. But Troy was well protected behind its walls, and it was defended by heroes and even supported by some of the gods, like Poseidon, Neptune to the Romans, Aphrodite, also known as Venus, and Apollo. The Trojans resisted. It seemed the city would never fall, as the Greeks could not break its fortifications, and the attackers were losing patience. So, after 10 years of fruitless attacks on Troy, King Odysseus, or Ulysses, came up with a plan. The Greeks built a large wooden statue of a horse on wheels. And suddenly, overnight, they abandoned the beach under the city's walls. Or so it seemed. Only one man stayed on the beach, as the Greeks pretended to sail away. His mission was to convince the Trojans that the Greeks had abandoned the fight, which meant that the Trojans had won the war. He also wanted them to think that the horse was an offering to Neptune, who was the god of the seas and the god of horses. But this was obviously a trap. The wooden horse was hollow, and inside it was King Ulysses and a group of warriors, waiting for the Trojans to drag the horse behind their walls. The Trojans hesitated. The Greeks were nowhere to be seen. And what risk was there of accepting a wooden statue, a gift to one of their gods? The Greek soldier tried to convince the Trojans that accepting the gift would make Neptune look favorably on them, enabling them to conquer Greece. But after 10 years of devastating war, the Trojans had their doubts, especially a priest named Laocoon. He saw through the Greek plot and urged his compatriots to destroy the wooden horse immediately. When they ignored his warnings, Laocoon took matters into his own hands and threw his spear at the horse. But then, 2 serpents sent by the gods suddenly emerged from the sea and devoured him. The Trojans saw this as a punishment for disrespecting the offering to Neptune. But the gods hadn't sent the snakes to help the Trojans. In fact, they had decided that Troy should fall. But, of course, the Trojans didn't realize this. Impressed by this divine intervention, they dragged the statue behind their fortified walls, and they began to organize festivities to celebrate their victory. The Trojans were oblivious to threats, thinking nothing could happen behind their walls. So, after nightfall, the armed Greeks emerged from the wooden statue where they had been hiding all day, and they silently opened the city's gates. Outside, the Greek army had returned and now stood ready to enter the defenseless city. As these events were unfolding, one of the Trojan princes and heroes, Aeneas, was sleeping at his house. Aeneas was of the highest Trojan nobility. His father, Anchises, was a prince of Troy, and his mother was the goddess Venus herself, who always made sure to protect her son. Aeneas had fought bravely throughout the war, protected by his fighting skills and his goddess mother, and he had survived. That night, as the Greeks were starting to invade the city and slaughter the Trojan guards, Aeneas was fast asleep. And as he slept, the Trojan hero Hector appeared to him in a dream. Hector had recently died by the hand of Greece's most formidable hero, Achilles. In the dream, Hector's ghost urged Aeneas to immediately flee the city with his family. The gods had made plans, and they had decided that Troy would fall. But in their negotiations, Venus had obtained protection and a future for her son. A future so brilliant and extraordinary that the name of Aeneas would become immortal, and his deeds would be celebrated for centuries. But for his fate to happen, Aeneas needed to escape the destruction of the city. At first, when Aeneas awoke, he joined the battle and tried to fight the Greek invaders. But then he saw the reality of the situation. Trojan warriors were falling one after the other, and the city was engulfed in fire and smoke. After witnessing the death of Priam, the old king of Troy, Aeneas accepted that the war was lost. Then his mother Venus appeared. She led Aeneas back to his house, where his family were anxiously waiting. His son Ascanius, his wife Creusa, and his father Anchises. Aeneas's family all accepted the need to escape and discreetly made their way towards the city's gates through the chaos that Troy had become. When they reached the open gates, Aeneas realized that his wife, Creusa, was no longer with them, and he went back to the city to search for her. But instead of finding Creusa, he encountered her ghost. The ghost of Creusa told Aeneas that he should follow his destiny. He should travel west, where he would go through struggles, temptation, and perils, but ultimately, kingship and a new royal spouse awaited him. After losing his city and his wife, Aeneas was devastated. But his father and son had survived, and with inspiration from his divine mother, Aeneas found the strength to rally a few other survivors and flee from the burning city. The Greeks were now celebrating their triumph, but the survival of Aeneas and his companions were the seeds of a new empire, one that, by the will of the gods, would surpass anything the Trojans or even the Greeks could have ever imagined. Over many generations, the creation of Rome would be the phoenix rising from the ashes of Troy. After their escape from Troy, the survivors prepared to set sail. They had built a fleet of ships and decided to accompany their new leader, Aeneas, on his travels west. This group of refugees was being closely watched by the gods. On their side were the protectors of Troy, like Neptune, Venus, and Apollo. Others were neutral or even hostile, like Juno or Hera to the Greeks. Juno was the queen of the gods and the wife of Jupiter. Under the eyes of the gods, Aeneas and the other survivors began their wanderings across the Aegean and Mediterranean seas. To begin with, they landed in Thrace near Troy, where they found the last remains of another Trojan warrior and hero, Polydorus. Then they arrived on the island of Delos, a holy sanctuary of Apollo. Delos was welcoming and peaceful. The group was tempted to stay there after the exhausting ordeal they had just gone through in Troy. But Apollo told them to leave, as this was not the place where the gods intended them to build their city. So Aeneas's group sailed to Crete, where they thought they had arrived at their destination. They started building a settlement, the future city. But as soon as they began to build, they were struck with disease. Then Aeneas had a dream where Apollo told him that this was the wrong place and that they should leave Crete. Left with no other choice, they abandoned the settlement and sailed west. On their next stop, on an island west of Greece, they encountered a harpy, a monstrous half-bird, half-woman. The harpy ordered them to leave her island immediately and made a prophecy. Aeneas and the other survivors would reach Italy one day in the future, but they wouldn't find it until they were driven by hunger to eat their own tables. With this gloomy prophecy, the group resumed their wanderings, this time landing in Epirus in the north of Greece. Aeneas's group were not the only survivors of Troy. Others had managed to escape and travelled to Epirus. There, the survivors had begun to build a city that replicated Troy, hoping it would give them a second home and cure their homesickness. This group of Trojans included Andromache, Cassandra, and Helenus. He was the son of King Priam of Troy, and he had the gift of prophecy. Helenus made a new prophecy. He revealed that not only would Aeneas's descendants prosper in Italy, but they would also rule the entire world. Epirus was not the promised land for them. And so, the group set sail once again. As you may remember, not all the gods who watched Aeneas's expedition were benevolent. Among their enemies was Juno, the wife of Jupiter. Juno was against the Trojans and Venus because she had been humiliated long ago. Before the Trojan War, 3 goddesses had appeared in front of Prince Paris of Troy and competed for his preference. Paris had to choose which of them should receive a golden apple, and all 3 goddesses, Juno, Minerva, and Venus, thought it should be theirs. Each goddess promised extraordinary rewards: kingship and power for Juno, strength and glory for Minerva, or the love of the most beautiful woman in the world for Venus. Paris had chosen Venus over the others because the highest reward a man could hope for was eternal and perfect love. He was promised Helen, the Greek queen, even though she already had a husband. Paris abducted Helen and took her to Troy, prompting the beginning of the war. Venus had sided with the Trojans, whereas Juno and Minerva were on the Greek side. You might think that the death of Paris and the complete destruction of Troy would have been enough vengeance. But not for Juno, who held grudges for a very long time. She had never been one to forgive, whether it was the judgment of Paris or the infidelities of her husband. So, after all these years, Juno was still angry and jealous of Venus, and she kept plotting against the Trojans. Which brings us back to Aeneas. Because of her anger, Juno was determined to prevent Aeneas and the Trojans from reaching their destination and building a new city. But she also had another motive. The other gods had accepted that Aeneas and his companions would travel westward and lay the foundations of Rome. And it was said that one day Rome would be the rival and destroyer of Carthage, Juno's favorite city. For that reason, Juno decided that Aeneas should never reach Italy and never found a new city. And she would get her revenge against Venus, the mother of Aeneas. Her moment to strike was approaching. By this point, Aeneas's expedition had come closer to Italy, but they weren't there yet. They were near Sicily, the large island to the south of Italy. There, they went through other adventures, similar to Ulysses in the Odyssey. Near Sicily, their boat travelled through a narrow strait, which was a particularly dangerous place. They had to go between the immensely powerful whirlpool of Charybdis and the sea monster Scylla. As a result, they were driven out to sea and away from Italy, only to come ashore at the land of the Cyclops, the one-eyed giants. There, they narrowly escaped from Polyphemus, a Cyclops that Ulysses had tricked and fled from shortly before on his own trip back to his kingdom. After that, Aeneas's father, Anchises, died of old age, and the fleet was suddenly taken into an unexpected storm. Juno had chosen this moment to finally unleash her wrath. She had no power over the seas and the wind, and so she had approached Aeolus, the ruler of the winds, and asked him to stir up a storm. Aeolus had no reason to obey her and take sides between the gods, so she had to offer him a bribe. Juno reigned over several lovely sea nymphs and offered the loveliest of them as a wife to Aeolus. The ruler of the winds accepted the offer. Soon, Aeneas's fleet, which was trying to sail back towards Italy, faced trouble. Black clouds formed above their heads. Winds began to blow chaotically from every direction, and the storm devastated and scattered the fleet. The Trojans were saved only by the intervention of Neptune, the god of the seas, who'd been infuriated by Juno's intrusion into his domain. He calmed the waters to save the desperate fleet. The ships regrouped and took shelter on the coast of Africa, near a recently founded city where a powerful queen reigned. The city was Carthage, and its queen was Dido. Remember the prophecy? Carthage would later become a great imperial rival and enemy to Rome. But who could have believed that when Carthage had just been founded by a group of Phoenicians far from their homeland in the east of the Mediterranean, and Rome did not even exist yet? After a while, as the crews were repairing the ships and looking for food, Aeneas decided to venture into the city of Carthage. He knew that Juno was the patroness of Carthage, with a temple here. He hoped he could appease her by showing his devotion. In the temple of Juno, he met the Queen of Carthage, the lovely Dido. Of course, Aeneas was still mourning the loss of his wife, but after seeing Dido's beauty and grace, a flame awakened in him, which he thought had disappeared forever. The queen was also widowed, and she was impressed by the looks and bravery of the Trojan warrior. Venus knew that the Trojans needed respite before continuing the journey, and Carthage was the perfect place. But Venus needed some help. She called her son Cupid, the god who could make humans fall in love. Cupid disguised himself and acted as Aeneas's guide. He went to Dido with gifts, and she responded with a banquet in honor of her Trojan visitors. During the banquet, Cupid sparked love for Aeneas in the heart of Dido. The threads of a tragedy were coming together. The two were attracted to each other, but separated by prophecies that pitted young Carthage against future Rome. How would the other gods react to this doomed love? Well, we will soon see how events unfolded. But before that, let's take a break from the story for a moment. To fully understand the Aeneid, we need to look at it in context and learn about its author, Virgil. The Aeneid was written over a period of 10 years, about 2,000 years ago, between 29 and 19 BCE. At this time, Rome had already begun its impressive expansion as a military, cultural, and political power. Politically, there was also a transition from the old republic to an increasingly imperial system. The institutions of the ancient republic officially stayed in place, but supreme power was moving into the hands of hereditary emperors. At the time when the Aeneid was written, the new emperor was Augustus. He was the successor of Julius Caesar, who had defeated Mark Antony and Cleopatra and all his other rivals to concentrate his power. After years of civil war, the fall of the Republic in all but name, and the devastation this had on society, people were craving stability. Their faith in the greatness of Rome had been put in doubt, and this was a problem because Rome was no stranger to civil wars. The Emperor Augustus was well aware of this. He wanted to consolidate his power and restore pride and traditional Roman values, as well as creating a sense of continuity and political unity. So when Virgil started writing the Aeneid, it was sponsored by the highest authorities in Rome. It was not only a work of literature designed to entertain, it also served another purpose. In part, it was propaganda. Even though the premise of the Aeneid is that it tells the story of the founding of Rome, it was never presented as a history book. The Romans knew that it was myth. Besides, Virgil had a good reason for telling the story in this way. By turning a hero with high moral values into the founder of Rome, and even linking him to the ruling dynasty, the Julio-Claudian dynasty, Virgil hoped to create a remarkable work. He wanted to galvanize his readers, to inject a sense of greatness, of epic, into the mythology of Rome. A well-known, even older story about the founding of Rome is the tale of Romulus and Remus, and Virgil includes this in the Aeneid. He integrates the story into the epic, together with numerous pre-existing characters and tales from the Greek and Roman traditions. Of course, Greek culture was very important to the Romans. First, there was the literature, works like the Iliad and the Odyssey, which the Romans knew very well. Then there was the Greek religion, architecture, language, logic, philosophy, the way of looking at the world, all of this was part of the cultural knowledge of educated Roman citizens. However, they had ambivalent feelings towards Greece. There was a great deal of admiration and acceptance of this cultural heritage, but also a sense of being different and somewhat more successful as a civilization. It was Rome, not Greece, that had conquered the entire Mediterranean world. And at the end of the 1st century BCE, most of the ancient Greek world and a large part of the empire of Alexander the Great was already under Roman administration. The Aeneid reflects all of this. It is clearly heavily inspired by the works of Homer and is full of references to Greece. And yet, in the story, the ancestors of the Romans are the Trojans, the enemies of the Greeks, who finally got their revenge many centuries later. This was a characteristic of the Romans. They often glorified their enemies, the kingdoms they conquered, because obviously the fact they had prevailed enhanced their own sense of greatness. They did it with Carthage and their successive opponents during their expansion. But the Aeneid is more than a work of propaganda. It's also an extraordinary piece of storytelling and poetry, comprising almost 10,000 lines. Today, it is somewhat less famous than the Iliad and the Odyssey. There aren't many movies or TV shows directly inspired by the Aeneid, for example, and the characters are probably less famous. But this wasn't always the case. For a long time, the Aeneid was at the center of scholarly culture and was seen as the masterpiece of antique literature. In the Middle Ages and the early modern times, it was probably the most important original work in Latin. It was to Latin what the Odyssey was to Greek. And the story itself was well known and taught to pupils until the 19th century. A lot of elements from antiquity were reintegrated into Western culture over the centuries, in novels, plays, or operas, and the Aeneid kept being retold. If we look at operas, for instance, one of the most famous pieces by Henry Purcell, the English Baroque composer, is Dido and Aeneas. There's also a 19th century opera by Hector Berlioz called The Trojans, which retells the story of the Aeneid. And of course, each version is a little bit different. Something to keep in mind about this retelling, the one you're listening to now, is that the chronology is not exactly the same as in the original text. Our version is more or less in chronological order, so it's easier to follow. But that's not how Virgil wrote it. Another thing that Virgil took from the Greeks, and from Homer in particular, is the structure. The Aeneid is not chronological. Instead, it begins in the middle of events, or in medias res in Latin. And then we learn of past events through flashbacks, when characters tell their stories to others, as was the case in the Odyssey, for example. The Odyssey begins near the end, when Ulysses' son is looking for information about what happened to his father after he left the siege of Troy years before. Then we learn what happened to Ulysses over the years. And it's only at the end of the Odyssey that we come back to the present. Ulysses returns at last and reconquers his kingdom. This structure makes the story more dynamic. And in antiquity, when it was told rather than read, it must have been even more captivating to the audience. In the Aeneid, Virgil starts with an exciting scene. Aeneas and his ships are caught in the storm, which was created by Juno. Right away, we're in the middle of the action. After the storm, the Trojans land for repairs on the coast of Africa, near Carthage. And there, Aeneas meets Dido and tells her everything that has happened to them since their escape from Troy. This is how we learn everything you've heard so far, through the story Aeneas tells Dido. After that, the narrative of the Aeneid becomes linear again. We follow Aeneas from Carthage to Italy as he struggles to lay the foundation of Rome. There are 12 chapters in the Aeneid, and so far we've only covered 3 of them. So let's get back to the story. In Carthage, Aeneas and Dido fell in love, and Juno saw an opportunity to strike a deal with Venus. She would leave Aeneas alone if he could stay with Dido. This way, he would be distracted from his destiny, founding a city in Italy. Rome would never exist, so Juno's beloved city, Carthage, would not be destroyed. Venus was inclined to accept the deal because she cared about the happiness of her